So yeah, it's not perfect though. There is one minor issue, and that is Hello guys, and welcome to this volkswizard video, which is actually episode 3 of Project R8. Now firstly, I'd like to apologise about how the project has fallen behind schedule somewhat, but hopefully now the days are getting longer and the weather's getting better, we should catch up nicely over the next few weeks and months. A quick recap on the car. I bought it in December, and in January we lifted the front lid, had a good look at the aluminium space frame just to check it hadn't cracked, because some of the early cars do crack by the suspension mounting points, and thankfully it was okay. In about February for episode 2, I visited Metatrack in West London and had a Thatcham category S5 tracking device fitted, because the original system fitted in 2014 was no longer insurance approved, so that was brilliant. I can track it on the Metatrack app and do lots of other functions with that. And now episode 3, finally we're going to get the car in the workshop, get it up in the air and have a good look underneath it. So we're just going to check for leaks, corrosion, any damage, and just make sure it's all hunky-dory down there so that it will be fit for longer trips, maybe into Europe later in the year. So without any further ado, let's get Project R8 up in there and have a good look underneath it. The car's finally in the workshop, and it is a bit of a tricky car to lift. I'll just take you through what I have to do. Firstly, the car needs to be centered between the ramp posts. Because it's so low and wide, it is a really awkward car to lift. It's not as awkward as 911s, which have to go on backwards because of their funny weight distribution, but it's still tricky. Now, I've measured that it needs to be pretty much bang on 14 inches for it to be in the right position between the sills and the ramp. And that's sort of just under there, so that's about 13 3/4. I think that'll be okay. And then we should have pretty much bang on 14 on this side. So yes, that's yeah, pretty much bang on 14. That's good. That means that the ramp stands will align underneath the car. But the problem we have with them is that even if you take these extender pieces out, which you'd have thought would make all the difference, can you see the problem now? Well, there is a solution. It's not the most high-tech one in the world, but I bought some little ramps from Laser, one for each wheel. So just slot them in front of the car and then drive onto them. It gives you an extra few inches off the ground, which makes all the difference. And it's not just R8, these are useful for sort of pretty much every car that I lift now, particularly on the front end. They seem to be a lot lower than the back, so yeah, they do get used a lot. But I very rarely lift all four wheels on those, but on the R8 it's a necessity. I did actually buy some bigger ones a few weeks ago, and whilst it would have driven onto them at the front, they won't go under the sills because it's just so low. So these are the optimum. I'll just show you what kind of clearance we've got. These appear to be the optimum for this car. Careful measuring put me onto these Laser ones. So yeah, there's not really an awful lot more room there. So yeah, I'll put a link to an advert or whatever, an Amazon listing for these if you want to buy them. I think they're about 60 quid a pair, and they're money well spent, because it will cost you much more than that to repair a sill should you embed this corner of the ramp into it. Right, so it should be pretty straightforward now getting it up in the air. So yeah, next time you'll see me, I'll be underneath the car. Actually, before we get the car up in the air, I just thought I'd show you what the ramps have done to the ground clearance. So there they are. It's yeah, pretty easy to lay them out. They've got a little stop just there to stop you driving off the end of them, which is really useful. And as you can see now, the ramp is clearing the sill pretty easily. They're a tricky car to lift up in many ways, not least because you don't jack them up on the sills like a normal car. You have to jack them up on the floor in a couple of designated areas. I've got this diagram pinned to my ramp, which I'll put a proper picture of on the screen, but it just shows you where you can put them. So you've got a really good marked out area at the back here. So they're lifting platform mounts, which is like a circle, but at the front it's sort of arbitrary. You have to kind of like make sure you're not inside of the wheel arch there and you're not too far back, so you're kind of just behind the wheel arch before it becomes the main width of the body on both sides. But yeah, now this time we will get the car up in the air right now. As you can probably see, the tray is now on the ground, and I've carefully arranged all the screws on the ground next to it so I know where they came from and I can put them back without getting them all jumbled up. So there we have it. What we have revealed mainly is the gearbox. The engine is further forward in its own little tray, but I didn't see a point removing that, and to be honest it looks really difficult to do, but this back tray was quite easy and it does reveal quite a lot. The most interesting thing is this feat of engineering, the aluminium space frame, which is a battleship grey structure that you can hopefully see here. What's really impressive is that it seems to be really corrosion resistant. This car lived in Scotland for 4 of its 5 years, and there are telltale signs like the shock absorber there is sort of cosmetically corroded, and other bits of steel are also looking a bit worse for wear, but all the aluminium, the gearbox casing, the space frame, the wishbones, they're all beautiful, and that is really good because I've seen the underneath of a lot of 911s and they are all brown. That brown on that bolt there is what the majority of the surface looks like, even at 5 years old, particularly if they've lived in Scotland. So this car, thanks to its liner, has done really well. So yeah, it's not perfect though. There is one minor issue, and that is an oil leak. Well, when I say minor, it will potentially, well, it will definitely get worse. So there's oil, I don't know if you can see it on that black pipe there, and that comes off the oil tank, which is just that aluminium sort of casting there. Pipe runs over the chassis leg, becomes braided just there, and then goes into the sort of area behind the side blade where the oil cooler is. Well, where it becomes braided, it's very corroded, and that's causing oil to sort of seep out very slowly at the moment, run down the pipe, and sit here. Now that will only get worse, but luckily it doesn't look too hard to do, just undo that connection there. Hopefully when you get the liner out and expose this area, the oil cooler's in there, I've got no idea right now. The only sort of disappointment really is this car's a 2014 car. This kind of thing was happening to the B7 RS4 9 years before. So yeah, first RS4s were 2005. They've got an oil cooler at the front, but it's equally as exposed as this one, and they were corroding really badly and cars were losing oil and, you know, having to be recovered, and they didn't seem to have changed what they made those pipes out of for this car, even though it's a different design. It's the same sort of poor quality steel. Apparently on the 2015 Mark II R8 they get a lot better in their quality and they don't do this, but yeah, thankfully it shouldn't be too expensive to do, and if that's all I've got to do on this car, well, I think that's a bit of a result really, don't you? Anyway, I hope episode 3 of Project R8 has been worth the wait. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, please comment, please share, please subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one with a recharged gimbal battery very soon.